Good morning, everyone. This is BizTix TV. This is the place where you can find tips and tools to help you do business better. We're here to help you run a profitable business that's fun to run and to take the hassle out of your hustle. And today is Wednesday, so we're here with our money mindset coach, Miss Caren Fern, all the way from Toronto, Canada. Ah, and we want to give a shout out to our producer, Miss Francine Gregory, who always helps us get this thing going. She's got us on Facebook and YouTube and Periscope simultaneously. So thank you so much, Fran. I'm Carolina
Thanks,
from
Fran.
California Cover Up, and we are the Biz Chicks. So let's get started because, we got a lot of time to work on our minds right now, and that's what Coach Caren helps us do. Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Hello, guys. Hi, Terry. Hi, everyone who's catching us live and on the replay. All right.
hmm
So today we're continuing strength training. That's what we're talking about. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
There you go.
Yes. We are continuing. I'm going to give you a brief recap
hmm
on what we did, where we started off this month. And it started off with strength training right through the 4 weeks. And we first talk about money in mind and what it is, and the whole body, mind, and spirit. We tap into the importance of it, how to reinforce it, and all that sort of stuff. Week two, we went into what's happening right now with the virus and all that sort of stuff, because really and truly, even if you had a stellar mindset, it kind of throw you off because you feel the weight of the world. And so I encourage you to keep praying for the world, not only yourself and your family and friends, but pray for the world to help with that burden, because everybody's in such disarray, whether they're speaking of it or not. So you
hmm
just needing to be able to be there for the ones who are not sure yet how to be for themselves. And then last week we talked about how people are spending out of fear. And so it doesn't matter how much money come in, they mightn't have any left if there were spending out of fear. And I said to Terry just earlier, God was preparing me for what was to come, because I started off this year talking about budget. I went straight into sales, and I've started talking about strength training this month. And if you really look back at all the things I've been talking about, it's really bringing you into what you need to do, whether you understand it or not. Just go back to your notes, go back and listen to these videos, and you'll see how they're lining up. But you have to sit quietly and open your mind. Don't be distracted, pen and paper, and you'll see what's happening. I promise. And today we're talking about self-discipline, because all those things that I speak on require self-discipline. And you really
mm
have to, nobody has to make you do it or want you to do it more than you can want to do it for yourself. It doesn't matter what
hmm
I wish for you, what I hope for you, unless you decide that this is what you want right here, right now, you're not going to see the benefits. And when this is all over, yes, and lots of us is going to be alive when this is all over, we're going to be
Well, thank God.
we're going to be wishing that we had done, that we had take this time, that we had disciplined ourselves and say, listen, I can't do 12 things today, but I can do three. And those three, I'm going to do them really well. And that's it. No beating yourself up, no going crazy. That's the three that you're getting done. That's it. You got to focus on your stuff first. Number one, you got to focus on your stuff first. And then I'm going to come back and get into it. And number two, you have to allow yourself to get into learning. That's the second part. The learning is the second part, because you have to develop you first. And then number three, you got to decide on the rewards you seek and then give it to yourself. Whatever rewards you decide you're going to give yourself, you have to actually give it. So it got to be a good reward so that you want to accept it. Don't just spur the moment. Again, when you're disciplined enough, you understand this. My son and I was talking yesterday afternoon about overeating and all the different factors that's going to happen within this period. But if you're self-disciplined, you know that you eat breakfast like I do. You know that you eat lunch. You know that you eat
hmm
dinner. You have two snacks, whatever they are. Don't go crazy because of what's happening. If you're tempted to eat, my solution has always been drink some water, journal, get into the word, do something that doesn't involve putting your hands to your mouth. Really
hmm
pay attention to that, because you're going to feel guilty and beat up on yourself after the fact if you
hmm
are here still. And that's just the way things are. Some things we don't like to face, but it's true. We have to really be paying attention to those sort of things, right? So, anything before I dive in, Terry?
No, I got the 3 points. Focus on what is it, yourself.
Yeah, your own stuff.
Focus
Your
on
own
your
stuff.
own stuff.
Yeah, personal or business.
Um,
Focus on that first.
get into learning during this period,
Yeah.
and then decide what outcome, what reward you want, and it needs to be big enough to motivate you, basically, to stay fixed on the stuff you want. Okay. All
I
right. I'm ready.
Number one was focus on your stuff first. I'm gonna give you a little
Hmm.
story around that. I used to tutor kids while I had my daycare. My daycare would be finished, and every Saturday I would tutor kids. I had about 15 of them, 15 or 17 kids that came Saturday mornings for tutoring. And I would prepare for those kids. I come from daycare. Yes, I'm tired. Yes, I got my family, but I made this commitment. So I baked cookies Friday night, or I did something nice so that when the kids come, they'll have something. And also, the kids come Saturday morning, and if they didn't have breakfast, they got breakfast from me because I wanted them to really enjoy coming to do stuff that most kids doesn't want to do on a Saturday. They finish school on Friday. The first thing they did once if they didn't have breakfast and they eat, the first thing they did was do their homework. And it seems, and some parents, when I first had said it, come to production, why are they coming to be tutored if they could just do their homework at home? When they came to me, they actually get their homework done. Because within 3 weeks, I have parents calling and sending other kids because they're like, the kids passed the test. What did you do? Because I wanted them to focus in on what was given to them. Then the other half of the tutoring is where I have prepared work to teach them, which means I'm furthering their skills when they leave my little place. So you're not only coming to do the work your teachers had given you, I'm also have work prepared in line with what you were learning. And I can tell you, those kids used to be excited to return next Saturday. Matter of fact, I had two of the parents used to be calling me because they come on a Wednesday. I'm like, no, it's just on Saturday. Yes, they enjoy the cookies. Yes, they enjoy the wonderful thing. One of the big things I used to have the kids do is do story time. And this was from primary to high school kids that I tutor. And yes, they had story time. And what that allowed for the story time was to allow them to relax. So before they even get into their stuff, they get to relax and story time about what happened at school, how they felt about a certain subject, why was it so hard for them, why was it hard getting it done, and then they'll write about it and they'll write their stuff. So by the time I'm ready now to teach, they're relaxed, they're open, they're ready to take it. So they do
Hmm.
better. And if anybody had exams, I would always say this to the parents, they need to tell me up front so we can focus on what happens in the exam room that makes them nervous, because
Hmm.
all the kids knew what to do, but some kids can't take exams because of their nervous system, because of what happened in their brains. And why am I telling you this? Because this is directly related to what happens to us as adults. We sometimes can't focus on our own stuff because some part of our nervous system gets really panicky when we have to sit down by ourselves and actually do the work. It shows up as we're afraid people's not gonna like it. It shows up as nobody's gonna want to pay for it. It shows up as if we're wasting time because they don't pay us right away. And so all that is mindset work, but it shows up in these different arenas, and then we don't want to do it. So disciplining the mind and understanding first of all who you are will allow you to be able to sit down and
Hmm.
do it. So I mean you have to ask the hard questions. The hard question,
Uh-huh.
why don't I like to sit by myself and do my work? You got to answer that
Hmm.
before you do the stuff. Because every time you sit down, you can't get it done.
Hmm.
Every time you sit down. All right. So, number two, allow yourself to get into the learning of whatever you have to do. If it's hard, you're going to have to do it hard. But it's only hard because you haven't done it yet, or you have failed when you attempted the first or 100 times over, because there's things in our lives that takes us a longer time to grasp, And that's not because you're dumb, stupid, or you don't understand it. It just means that the way it was presented to you, you haven't learned that way. That's a new way probably for you to learn. So you have to really figure out how this is going to make you learn better. And here's the good news about when things are harder to learn. You also develop yourself better. You develop a different part of you that you didn't think existed because now you have to teach yourself how to take in this information. And when you understand that, you can learn differently. You don't have to only learn one way. And if you just haven't, it just feels hard, but it's doable. I promise you, it's doable. But first, you have to look at yourself, and that's where you have to focus on your stuff first before
Mm-hmm.
you can look and learn from others, anybody, school, university, or online academies. I have one, all these places and all these things we're trying to tell you not to be distracted and actually do the work. But to get you to do the work, we know you have to discipline yourself first because that's
Mm-hmm.
the only way you'll be able to actually do the work. And then we talk about the rewards that you have to decide on a reward. What do you really want? What's the end of the line? An accountant is going to school because at the end, he or she wants to be an accountant. They want to look after people numbers. Lots of accountants don't go to school because they are going to make a lot of money, by the way. Honestly, people don't want to say that, but it's true. They're going to school to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like the people who's going to be rich. They are not setting out to do it. Some people just become rich, and some people plan the richness, or people see what was happening and they capitalize on what they start seeing, and then they go towards that. So, an accountant, some of them after a while start realizing, hey, I can do this too. But most are going to school just to be an accountant for a firm, for a company, for a corporation, making sure the books are right because they love numbers. There are poor accountants. There are accountants who has no money. I personally know a
Mm-hmm.
few accountants who just drink a lot because I know one, and I'd asked him. I remember because I was studying accounting at the time. I was just about 16, and I was in an accounting, economics, and English class. I was taking these lessons in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
and I said to him, "Why do you drink so much?" He said, "It's the numbers. It's the numbers." And I said, "No, why do you drink? It's more than that." But he said, "Sometimes it's hard to be doing all these big companies, but you have nothing." And this is how he was handling it. Of course, at that time, I didn't think about how to talk to him about it. I was just fascinated that this is such a good career, a good paying job. But he just, he'd lost everything by then. When I know born, he had lost his home, his wife, his kids, everything to the bottle of.
Oh,
Later I realized it's the stress. Some people, the stress of the job, really.
really?
Mhm.
Hmm.
Anything you're doing, and these are the other things people don't talk about. If you're in a certain world with people
Mm-hmm.
who, let's say you can't, I'm not a drinker. Let me just clarify right now. I can't drink anything. So I drink a glass of
Mm-hmm.
wine or two, and my bed better be very close to me because I'm out. I'm a lightweight, they call me, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I'm a celebratory dinner glass of wine person. You know
thank you.
what I mean? Like
That's
if
it.
my brother is celebrating his anniversary or
Mhm.
something, I might have a glass of wine, but that's about it.
Thank
So,
you.
and I don't know what my body will do now because it's just not come a long way since college.
Right? So I got a drink. So but I know this, but sometimes people feel pressure when they're with people and they're drinking or they're going out to functions for the company and different things. And he said that's how it
Hmm.
started for him. He's a kind of was a big drinker. But then I realized I couldn't hold my drink, but I would still do it. And then I get to the part where I felt like it was no return and I didn't know what to do with myself. Now, this is a big man we're talking about. And I'm not saying it wasn't around, those things weren't around. But in his day and age, he's saying that, it was actually shameful to admit that you had a problem.
Oh.
And then by the
Hmm.
time it gets so big, you don't want to do anything about it. And even though you're watching, you're losing all this stuff, you still don't want to do anything about
You don't want to change the lifestyle. Hmm.
it until everything is
Okay.
gone. And I've talked to other people who lose a lot of things at different points in time because at the time I wanted to write a book about why people will have all this stuff and let it go and what was their thinking behind it and what was going on. And I mean, the handful of people I spoke to, they had the same tone that was happening. It was revenge on not self-worthy, and it was a whole pile of things that was climbing in a certain area that causes, not everybody, but a lot of people, stuff did come from childhood and what was going on with them that started spiral. And once they got out of control, they weren't sure how to turn it around, even though they went to counseling. Especially here in North America, the few that I'd spoken to, even though they went to therapy, even though they've had hardship, they would seem fine, but they would come right back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because this one Pacific gentleman said to me, because it was just easier to come back to it. It was just easy to be in my
It
comfort
was
zone.
familiar.
Yes. That's why I talk a lot about comfort zone. He said it was just that's where I'm home. He said that's the place I feel good. I know in everybody's mind, and when you see me, you can't understand it, but I'm home when I'm there.
Mm. Because home was dysfunctional or whatever that
That
zone was.
hmm
But because it is your former norm, it's easy to return to the norm.
yes, yes.
Then, if you grow up in chaos, it's comfortable.
It is comfortable. Anybody who grew up in a home that was a hoarding place or it was very untidy, people would call them the OCD people because they want everything in its place because they're afraid that's it's part of them and they might get back there. And I used to be an organizer, and I can tell you, I must have had one or two in any given time that wasn't the cause. Most hoarders, most more unorganized people were what was happening that we couldn't see. And it's always a discussion like Terry and I are sitting here, and we really have to sit and talk. And I had to be mindful before we touch anything because it was never about the stuff that I went to talk about. It's always about what was happening inside of them and the steps we need to take before we move anything. We always hear
Mm.
about the three piles, but the three piles come weeks or days, hours later, after the conversation and the knowing and the understanding and bringing them to this realization that this is doable and that living a different way is okay. It's good. The revenge could end right here. The only person suffering is you. The people you are punishing is no longer here, whether on earth or in your home. They don't come see you. They don't know you're doing this. People,
Mm.
how many people are taking revenge by hoarding things? But it never shows up like they're taking revenge because it just shows up like I like to keep things, I want to buy things. Lots of it is from revenge. All right.
Mm.
So you have to understand. That's why you have to focus first on your stuff. Understand who you are, the kind of life you want, where you want to see you, where you want to go. And then once you tap into that, you need to take action immediately. Whatever that action step is next, you need to go ahead and take that next step. And if that next step is learning, you need to go into, let's say you bought a course where you're sitting on it and you didn't do anything, go in and read the introduction for the course. That's it, and have a paper next to you and write a couple of notes of the three things you're going to do next in the course that the instructor, the teacher is asking you to do. Just write those
Mm-hmm.
three things down and then go and do those three things. But before you do the three things on number four, I want you to write what's going to be your reward for getting those three things accomplished. And it doesn't mean
Wow.
you have to eat anything. It could be a glass of water. It could be it could be simple as when I'm finished these three things, I'm gonna go to the wash. I'm gonna wash my face, give my face a deep wash, do a face mask. Just something that makes you feel good about yourself and
Mm-hmm.
make you want to carry on. Like have this in place. And then once you're done, you come back, you make a schedule and you stick to it. You stick to that schedule regardless of what's going on, you stick to it. Even if it means all I'm able to do is read the material. If I can't
Mm.
physically do it, could I read the material? The learning part of it. Could I research something? I got to tell you, when I'm not going to dismiss this part, so let me be very clear. I understand. When you're broken, whether it's finance or heartache. It is hard to do the things I'm talking about. So I'm aware that it's hard. And I don't know the state you're in. I don't know if your heart is breaking from things. I know it's hard. But I know when you take action, when your heart is breaking, you don't stay in that state for as long as you would have. Any action, any movement changes the way your brain works and moves. And that little
Mm-hmm.
shift causes the change. The thing that you're fighting not to do is what you must
Okay. Hmm. Wow. Okay.
do.
I understand it because you sort of become paralyzed.
Yes, you don't want to do. You become paralyzed. You stand there and you think about all that you could do, but then you don't do.
Mm-hmm.
You don't do. I remember this gentleman, and I didn't like him, but he's an awful person. But I remember when his wife died because she was such a nice woman, you know. And he would just come into work. He'd own his own business, so he'd come into work and bark at the guys and carry on really terrible with them because he was in this pain. You know, the nicest part of him had died. She died. She smoothed over everything and make his life look good. He was an awful person. And I was telling a friend of mine in there, I said, it's because he has to still do. I know everybody wants him to just go home and leave them alone. But I said, I know you guys, but what you guys need to do is start talking to him about what he could do. I know that he knows, but somebody needs to tell him. Somebody needs to get in there and somebody needs to tell him. And the guy that never officially had the title, but his right hand guy, he was pretty nice. And I said to him, I said, Sinclair, you're gonna have to take over and kind of like be the boss. I know you're not, but you're gonna have to kind of like be the boss because Paul cannot continue like this. This whole workshop is gonna close and you guys are not gonna have any business. And he's like, why would you care? I said, because you guys buy from us and you're part of our business and you bring a lot of business to our business. They were a big part of my mom business. They shop a lot.
Yeah. This is a supply chain. We need to keep it
Yeah,
flowing.
right.
Yes.
He's like, girl, you're always thinking ahead. I'm like, yeah, if everybody's sad in this workshop, guess what? My mom is gonna can't pay her rent. So you guys need to get it together because they were mechanics, eh? So they shop a lot. They buy their food, they buy stuff from her a lot. So I was like, he can't keep doing it. People are gonna leave because the younger fellas and I would chat about him. They're like, I'm looking for a new shop and blah 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 because he's being really nasty, worse than he usually are. And I
Because
said,
he didn't have any breaks. Yeah.
you somebody's got to do. He says, I was thinking about it, but I kind of didn't want to go in his face. I'm like, somebody's got to go in his face. He's got 3 young kids. They're not going in his face. No family's going in his face. Somebody's got to go in his face and say, listen, not partially. I'll take over all the paperwork from you and I'll talk to the customers when they come. You just relax, take 2 days off. And when you come back, we'll see things. And you know what? He said he was happy that I took over. He didn't know how to ask, but he was happy when Sinclair took over because it
Yeah.
allowed him the time.
Hey, Maureen. Hey, Brenna. How you doing?
Hi, ladies. How are you? Yeah, because strong people too. People who I was talking about this in something the other day. I said extroverts like myself, we will do a lot, give a lot, but sometimes it's hard to ask for the help we need. It's hard to actually it's even hard for us to see that we need the help. So if you're that state and you're in whatever's happening, sometimes it's hard to see that you need help and that somebody can come in and help you. You probably need somebody to tell you they can help you and show you how they can help you. And then you'll let them help you.
Mm.
You'll let them help you. So today is really about, I know I'm not talking about Paris because everybody else is. And I talked about it last week. But I'm not skipping over it. I'm not pretending it's not there.
Can you hear the guy blowing in my window?
Oh, that's what I was.
He's right up against my window with the leaf blower. And I'm like,
Hi.
okay, let me turn
He loves
myself.
you, Terry. Hi.
It doesn't matter what time I broadcast, they find me.
He loves
Okay. Okay, I received that.
That's the only way to look at it.
There you go. Well, he doesn't miss me. That's a blessing. Okay. All right. They have calmed down. We got Gotta Be Handmade. Linda in here from South Carolina. How you doing, girl?
Oh my word. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I hope that it wasn't too distracting.
yeah, that's all right. I was saying I'm not skipping over the virus and what's going on in our world.
Mm-mm.
I'm just talking.
No,
I
no.
think
We're just.
that last week. We know it's around. Everybody know what's happening. So
It came to pass.
yeah.
So,
So
so,
I'm covering what we started off this month, whole month has started with strength training, and that's really the discipline in yourself. And today we're covering discipline, right? And the discipline of
mm-hmm.
your mind, because when your mind is disciplined, yes, I understand. I always try to answer these questions. We say, but, yes, I understand. You feel like chaos at time. You feel like things are not going how you want it to go. I understand all of that. But I'm saying when you discipline the mind, and I understand it takes time, you will notice that all that's happening, you almost feel guilty if you haven't experienced yet that you're calm and peaceful while everybody is railing up. And if people will say you're cold, you're not. No, you've got to
Yeah.
the point where you know that if X was to happen, this is what's going to happen with Y and Z. And you really stay focused there and you don't let in what you don't want. So number one was focusing on your own stuff. And that is your personal stuff. That is your business stuff. Don't let up. Don't let go. Don't stop selling. Don't stop presenting. Don't stop writing your content. Just keep doing what you set out to do and allow yourself the breaks and the time and the mental peace that you need to have. Make sure all those things are happening, but don't let that take you over and you don't focus on building your business where you saw it. If this year 2020 was your year, continue. Even if you don't see the results this year, but it happens for 21. If you build this year, 21, you'll reap. If you don't build this year and you were planning on this year, you have nothing to reap in 21. You didn't plant any seeds, you didn't water the seeds that was planted, so there's no reward to get from there. So you want to be mindful of that. Once you understand yourself and your stuff, then you get into the learning part. You get into looking after what it is you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to learn. And having said that, I'm going to talk about mine right now. I am starting my free courses, and in those free courses, people, even though it's for my group, you still have to sign up to get it because I want the people who actually want it to get it, not to give it away to people who don't want to do anything with it. You're going
Mm-hmm.
to learn the foundation. It's foundational business building. You're going to learn how to really operate your business. You can learn how to register your business and all that stuff. That's the hard stuff. It's how to actually be in the business is the hard part, because a lot of people start a business, register business, get a bank account, do all that stuff, and then they're like, now what? Because they haven't really developed how they're going to look after themselves. And so I want you to learn that core stuff. When you buy into my paid program, you're coming prepared. This is like a prerequisite to come and pay for a program. I don't want you to just jump in there and say, what shall I do now? I want to actually do the work and see the results from the work.
Mm-hmm.
And number three was decide on the reward for yourself. As I was stating, if you're an accountant and you went to school for accounting, you expect to have an accounting job. If you're a bookkeeper, same thing. You're going to look after people's books, whether in a form or your own. If you went to school for criminology like I did, you're going to be looking after criminals. When you come out, you're going to have to figure that sort of stuff out, right? When I went to school for business, same thing. I'm coming out in my head running my own company. Some people are coming out to run other people's companies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew how to run a business, but it's good to go into schooling to understand the theory part of things that, although it's good and I know it from experience wise, you get to actually parcel it up rightly when you take the schooling for it. At least that's what I see for schooling for myself. And you know what you're going to get from that. Now, as business owners, we have to have a reward too. And if we don't know what the reward is, it's hard to work towards anything. It's hard to really keep plowing at it. That's why you need to know your reward up front. And don't people, I'm going to say this, and who don't like it, I'm still saying it. Don't tell me you're doing it for your children. Don't tell me that. You got to do it for you and let your children be, and your children's children get the reward from it. But you got to do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you do not do it for you, and those kids disappoint you, you're going to stop doing it because what's the point of my doing it and they're not listening to me? See why you can't do it for them? You're doing it for your husband. Well, he irritates me today. I'm not going to do it. Mm-mm. You got to do it for you because when you do it for you, you're going to do it. Kids is going
Mm.
to irritate you. Kids is going to make you feel like, why bother? So when you say I'm doing it for them, it is hard at times when they act up because they're gonna, because they're kids, because they're supposed to. That's part of their journey, their passage. That's what they're supposed to do. The minute you understand that, you're not going to be so freaked out, but you do it for you. You do it because this is your journey, this is your joy, this is your passion, this is what God intended to use you as the vessel to do. So that's why you're doing
Mhm.
it. And then they get from it. They get where you decide to give them from it. There's also free them up and don't hold them in bondage so that they can do what they're supposed to do with their journey as a vessel that God has created for them to do. That's the other good part. All right.
Mhm.
One forever. Everybody knows our charmers. We're getting close to time. We're at that time. So those were the three lessons I brought for you today. I hope you
Wow.
get a lot out of it. And I hope you're going to do something with it.
Wow. Well, one thing I did learn is do it for me. Wow. It does make sense, because so often we think if we're doing it just for us, that we're being selfish. But what we're really doing is being focused.
You're being focused. We are, I know they got selfish people, but most of our are selfless people. Most of our are selfless people. We will do way
Yeah.
more for our children, grandchildren, niece, nephew, friends, in front of ourselves. People start doing for
Mhm.
yourself so you can focus really well. And any distraction you're getting when you do for self is because you have allowed it. You're in
Mm.
control of that too. When you do for somebody, you're not in control of it. You're just not in control of
Oh, how interesting. Huh.
it.
All righty, Daddy. Coach, thank you so much. You,
You're welcome.
you always drop these wonderful nuggets on us. If people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
Find me everywhere in Profit in Daily. My group is Entrepreneur Prosperity in Profits in Daily.
All right, we will be sure to make sure that goes into the chat. And we want to thank you, Coach. You always bring such revelation about our, our minds and our mindset that affects how we do business and how we live our lives. Because how we live our lives is how we're going to do business.
Oh,
So,
for sure. For sure.
yes. And I
There's
heard one lady say, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
everything. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Whether we believe
So,
it, whether we understand it or not, that's exactly what we do. And so I just put the link in there right away for my,
thank you.
that's my group. Yeah. No, it's easier.
Thank you so much. Did you press? Oh, okay. I see it. Okay, let me get over here and see if I can copy this and put it in the chat for everybody before
Mhm.
we go. Hold on. Hmm. Um, you see, now we're talking about my skills here.
Oh, Terry, you're doing good. You're doing good, good.
Don't worry, guys. I got this.
You
I
got it.
got two.
You got
I got two fingers. Look. Hold on. I'm working on it, and I'm gonna make y'all wait while I do this.
it. Oh, my.
There it is. Okay, hold on. I'm coming back to the comments, and I'm doing this. All right.
Yeah.
Because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, guys. I want to encourage you to keep plugging at it, and don't forget to go to the front of your own line. We'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Thursday. We'll be here with Happy Healthy Habits with Robin Shimizu and friends. She always has great guests, so we encourage you to join us tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific time. What is it, 11 o'clock
11
Eastern
Eastern.
Standard Time,
Yes.
and 11 o'clock in Canada.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we love you. Have a great day. Bye bye.